smile. This is cool.
This is Husbandhood, a collaboration of husbands addressing the lessons of singleness, fatherhood, and marriage.
Since Christ is central to success in every area of life, we will offer biblical perspectives when navigating these topics. So, without further ado, what's good, husbandhood? Hello,
What?
everybody. This is Todd, and we have.
Daryl in the flesh.
And man, we've been missing you guys. We've been missing you, so it's
Yes.
good to just be
Yes.
back doing things once again. And you know how we do it. We're going to start things off with the shop talk topic.
Oh, yeah.
And we got a pretty fresh one here for you this evening, morning, whichever time you're listening to this. We're going to talk about movie and TV shows, remakes, and reboots. And what are your thoughts on them? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you just want anyone who's ever been a part of it to just, be given some harsh punishment? Daryl, I want to know your thoughts. What do you think about reboots and remakes?
So I would say it's actually funny that you bring this up because I think we just got finished seeing Avatar, which I couldn't, not throwing it out there as some like type of like, oh, everybody go see it, but like it was just like I didn't know if they can add on to it or anything. And so, not that that's a reboot, but like when you look at some of the other ones that they're coming out with, I can't remember like all the Disney ones that they come out with now. Um, I don't necessarily know how I feel about it because I feel like we try to we try to introduce so much of this new culture, like what everybody's doing now and stuff like that. And so we lose a lot of the originality of some of the movies. So then when you're used to seeing, like, for instance, Mulan, and everybody liked the
Hmm.
little dragon in there. I couldn't even remember his name, but everybody liked the little dragon. But then the new one, the dragon wasn't there. And you're like, ah. And then you had the old, like Aladdin, where, was it Robin? What's his name? I can't remember his
Robin, yeah,
name.
Robin Williams.
Yeah, he was like, the perfect genie. And don't get me wrong, Will Smith did a great job. But in my head, I'm like, just there's certain things that you get used to. And granted, I get it; those are Disney movies. People are like, why are you listening to Disney? There's a lot of other movies out there that's coming out. I'm like, and shows. I mean, like, there's a new Bel Air, and everybody loves the new Bel Air. And we kind of grew up on the old school, Will Smith and stuff like that. And so I don't know, man. Like, I feel like it's really on point, and they really did a good job, and maybe even caught some errors in the old one that made it better. And then sometimes I'm just like, they should have just left it alone. They shouldn't even touched
Yeah,
it at all. But I'm
yeah.
curious, what do you look like an avid TV watcher? I don't know. Is that, I could be wrong,
I wouldn't
but
say, I mean, back in the day,
yeah,
perhaps. Now, it's yeah, we have to be a little bit more strategic when we watch
yeah,
things. We got a toddler, so most of the time we watch things late at night after he's gone to bed because we can't be
yeah.
watching just any old thing when he's around. Um, I, I I have mixed feelings about it, right?
Okay.
Because in a lot of ways, I think it depends on how they handle the reboot or the remake
Mm-hmm.
and kind of the method that they go about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, I feel like they don't have a very good batting average when it comes to reboots and
Reboot.
remakes. So
Yeah.
that kind of colors my perspective. It's like, why are you touching this? You got, Hollywood. You guys are just notorious for ruining the things that you had seen at one time to have respect for. But one of the, kind of touching on what I'm talking about, if you want to utilize nostalgia to bring
Mm-hmm.
in the older audience who are now adults, and then you want to bring the kids and your new
Yeah.
generations, then don't then like take a number two on nostalgia
Yeah.
just to move things forward or make things progressive or whatever, because at that point I'm now mad. And if my children or the younger or the new audience enjoys it, now I'm doubly mad because I'm like, you don't understand why this is not okay, right? And so if you want to just because I don't own these properties, right? Like these people do, or they bought the rights to them or whatever. So you do what you want to do, but don't try to pull me into your nonsense. That's how I feel. So, for instance, I'm just gonna, with the Star
He's about
Wars,
to,
right? It
he's about to
wasn't
call
so
it
much
out.
a reboot, but they tried to like, but they still brought back, old characters, and I
Hmm.
felt like they disrespected what came before in order to try to like
Mm.
make these new movies,
Yeah.
and I left. Well, I actually never even watched the third movie out of this new trilogy because I
Okay.
was so mad coming out of the second one. The way they treated Luke, the way they treated Han Solo in the first movie,
Okay.
and whatever. I mean, okay, Leia went from not really having any kind of force skills to being able to like survive
Yeah.
like the frozen vacuum of space and bring herself back in. Come on.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, again, you're trying to utilize nostalgia because like, oh, we're gonna be excited as Star Wars. Oh, Luke's gonna be in there. Oh man, we
Yeah.
want to see him like do some awesome things. Han's gonna be there, and then like you leave and you're like, okay, I'm so upset.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, these are movies. Get over it. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. If you feel
Hmm.
that way, what if you think I'm taking it too far? I you have a right to that opinion, but I can look at you crossways too. So, so yeah, I would say you're gonna, Hollywood and these companies are gonna do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But I do think if you want to honor what has come before, but also move it forward. There's a way to do that without disrespecting what came
Yeah.
before, and also without making complete garbage
Hmm.
for this the people you're trying to bring into this story. Because to me, without what came before, you don't even have a foundation to build upon.
Yeah.
I disrespect that,
Yeah.
and
And
maybe
that,
they don't think it's disrespectful, but maybe
yeah,
listen to your audience when they tell you it's disrespectful.
that, and I think, I mean, we all know that industry is so, I mean, I wouldn't say it's money hungry, but it's definitely, now that a lot of people stream a lot of things and don't necessarily go into theaters, because before it was like you had to sell the ticket prices, and so
Hmm.
to sell the ticket prices, you had to really, what I like to think is really try hard, quote unquote, produce a movie that was really good in the sense, because if one person went in and it was like, oh, the movie was, horrible, then it prevented more ticket sales. But I feel like now that we can sit in our home and they got it out on Disney Plus, or they got it out on, Hulu or all the other platforms, then you tend to go, I'll check it out. And then now they're getting more audiences looking at movies and then going at the end like, what in the world did I just watch?
Hmm.
And I mean, I think that's probably a benefit that they have that we, unfortunately, that's why I know I'm on both sides of the fence as well as you are, because it's like sometimes you see a reboot, and it goes for video games too, but that's a whole nother,
Oh yeah,
we
yeah.
could
We
talk about a
can.
whole, I mean, we could talk about that. That'd be a whole
I was gonna
episode, to
say
be
that
honest
might
with
be
you.
a whole episode in of itself, not just a
Because
shot
man,
talk.
oh man, and so yeah, that's just the only thing I have a very hard time watching reboots, and so honestly, I kind of been going on to this like area where it's like I'm just gonna check out a movie that I've never seen before by a studio I've never even heard of before, and just seeing what they bring to the table, because those guys I feel like are really trying to grasp the attention. And so
Hmm.
then when you watch it, they usually for the most part have 3 or 4 movies lined up of different types. So then you get to watch them and see what they're about versus something that you're used to seeing. I mean, I don't even know how many Jurassic Parks there are, and I'm like, man, the first
Oh
three
my
were like
gosh, yeah.
awesome, and then
It's
now we're
starting to
like,
turn into like, yeah. I'm like, geez, come on. Let's wrap it up. No, this is the last thing I'll say on it too. That's also a big reason why. Well, one, and we'll actually talk about this. My wife is half Korean,
mm-hmm,
so we've now gotten into like Korean movies and
okay,
K dramas and stuff like that too. And I'm like, oh man, at least maybe Korea is also like redoing stuff that they've already done, but I don't know
yeah,
that. So to me, I'm like, oh, this is like really fresh stuff that
yeah,
I'm watching coming out of Korea and Japan and stuff like that. Whereas with America, obviously, that's all I've ever known really growing
yeah.
up. So it just seems so stale. And there have been some diamonds out there, right? I love
Mhm.
the new Top Gun. I felt like
Oh,
they
yeah.
did a really good job of kind of honoring the legacy. they didn't, and obviously Tom Cruise was involved in that. So, and I also
Yeah.
thought, maybe some people might disagree, but I thought the third Bad Boys was
Oh yeah, I
that
like
much
that
of
one.
life.
That was
I
good.
enjoyed that. So I'm not like I'm not like completely incapable of, kind of giving uh,
The
Hollywood a
bad.
chance.
Yeah.
But once you kind of, if I see something I don't like, or if that preview comes out, and I'm like, you got a tougher sell for me. So,
Yeah.
and granted, those neither of those were remakes or reboots. They
Hmm.
were just sequels that were like,
Yeah.
quite a bit removed. But again, that's just me just saying, like, there still are things that I do enjoy coming out of, Hollywood.
Yeah. And I agree. I agree with you. So it's funny. I heard you talk about a topic that we're going to talk about today, which I think is interesting because I realized we're probably about a couple of episodes, probably more than a couple of episodes, probably 5 or 6 episodes in, and no one really knows the story of like how we met our wives and just how we came to even being husbands, which obviously marrying a wife gets a husband still. But I don't know. Did you want me to take the lead or did you want to take the lead? Just kind of figuring out like how did you met your wife? How did you knew? How did you know? Wow, how did you knew? Well, got to work on those words. How did you
It's a proper English here.
how did
Well,
you
I mean,
know she was the one?
I'll let you kick things off, but I think the reason why we wanted to do this wasn't just to be like, hey guys, here's a story about our wives, so we can just share with you, but more so, because again, this channel is us trying to build a community, be an encouragement to other men, and we know that there might be men out there who maybe they're at a place in their lives where they want to find
Hmm.
someone, but they're not really sure, if that's going to happen, if that's possible. You might be dealing with people who are done with
Hmm.
trying to find a wife, which because yeah, there's there's a lot of hurt and stuff like that that
Yeah,
comes from these relationships. But for us, we your story is a little different than mine,
yeah,
and mine's different than yours. So we wanted to just say, hey, there's no exact formula to this,
exactly.
and we just want to speak to that by just sharing our stories.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I wouldn't mind starting off. So let's see, we only have so much time because I'm not going to try to keep everybody into the morning. But yeah, so I guess to start off, I know we're talking about how we met our wives. A little back history. I was married before. Actually, I was married for 16 years before. And then there was infidelity. My ex wife had cheated on me multiple times, and which led to me eventually getting divorced. It wasn't that I didn't try. Trust me, I tried. I mean, if anybody wants to comment, call, talk, text, whatever, I could definitely walk you through those moments where I was definitely looking for God to restore that relationship. There came a point in time where infidelity had crept in one more time before I finally called it quits. And yeah, I then began to serve in our local church. Just focusing on kind of healing, restoration, really trying to find myself. Because I mean, if anybody, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, this day and age, the way things are looking, we've all been through some sort of like betrayal, or maybe even something that I don't wish that on anybody, but I think we've all been through some set of that. And coming from a wife, it really does a damage to you. So really focusing in on the church and just getting healing, counseling, stuff like that. While I was in the church, I think, man, I don't know if we're doing timelines, but let's just go ahead and skip ahead. While I'm in the church, I began to serve, and something I like to do the most is hospitality. I love to cook, love to eat, love to serve. And so I picked up coffee, handing coffee out to people. Can't get any easier than that, right? So as I'm walking through my walk with Christ and healing, I'm serving coffee to others and just blessing them with a smile and stuff like that. My At that time, a member came in. She wanted to help serve. Really was adamant about the coffee. She loved the coffee. I don't know why. Now I know why. Love coffee. I mean, the more the merrier. Wanted to serve, and it's funny. We always have this joke because when I first met her, she was trying to serve, and we were having a little complications of getting people on staff to serve or whatnot. and I had just became a lead, so it wasn't like I was tooting my own horn or anything, but I was just kind of like, hey, I hear your request. Well, I'm a lead, and so I'll make sure that your request gets to the right person. And so she kind of looks like, you're the lead, okay? So I don't understand what that means, and I'm like, no, no, no. But anyways, and so she ends up serving. The first day, I don't even know where she's at. Like I'm serving. I'm doing food for the pastors. I'm doing food for the members, and I think she was. I think people knew her at the church because her father and her mother and her brother-in-law and sister went to the church. So she was kind of like, I guess everyone was like asking her like, "How you doing? How things are going?" And I'm like, "Where is this girl at? That's supposed to be serving with me? Like, she's nowhere to be found." Or actually, I'm sorry, where's this woman at? Because she's definitely not a girl anymore. And so, uh, and so I just think nothing of it. I'm like, hey, I got things to do, so I'm moving around and I'm, you know, serving the church and whatnot. And then finally she comes up. She's like, she's apologized. I'm sorry. Just people. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm used to it, whatever. And then I don't think I saw her for a couple of weeks. I want to say a couple of weeks after that. And then the day, we call it the day, it's December 23rd. It's the day that I feel like the veil was revealed. It's like, because at that time, and I'm pretty sure Todd, that when we hear your story, you can relate. I wasn't really necessarily looking for anybody. I was just serving, getting healing, and just, I definitely, and I definitely never looked at for anybody at the church. Church was just kind of like my place. I go in, and I bounce out, like in, out. That's kind of how I was doing it. Well, serving in, out. And so December 23rd, she was serving, and we were doing hot chocolate and cookies. And so my leads at the time were like, hey, we want these cookies on the tray. We want them to look nice. We want this hot chocolate. We want peppermint. We want all the sticks and the chocolate and all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I used to cook for about, 21 years. So put hot chocolates on a plate means nothing to me. And so I'm putting them on there, and I'm cascading them. I'm making them look all nice, and she's putting them on her plate, and she's like, "Yours look so nice," and stuff like that. And then someone's like, "Oh yeah, he's a chef, and that's why." She's like, "Oh my goodness, I feel like mine's are bad." I'm like, "No, no, no, yours are fine." I was like, "Hey, I'm just doing it one way, and you do it another way, or whatnot." And so we're cracking jokes, we're having a good time, and I'm looking at her like, man, this girl's great. Like, we laughing, like I ain't laughed this hard in years, and we're laughing. My leads are going crazy, like, oh man, we need hot chocolate. Run out. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, it's hot chocolate. Like, you take some packets, you take some water, you stir it, you got hot chocolate. Like, it ain't like we melting chocolate down and adding milk, and like we doing water powdered chocolate. And so I'm kind of like cracking jokes with her. I'm like, man, I don't know why we stressed out. This should be easy, so on and so on. And so she just kind of asked me what I'm doing for Christmas. And I was like, oh, well, I said, well, my daughters will be with their mom, and my parents are going out of town. And so I think she was kind of like, huh? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I said, me and my, ex-wife have been separated for 2 years, pretty much about to getting a divorce. And so this will be the first year I'll be by myself. So, just kind of taking it as it is. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, if you don't mind me asking, what happened, and stuff like that. Well, by that time, my lead had walked in the door. So I already told her everything that was going on. So, of course, she fills her in. And so she's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I just got to go over a divorce as well. And I was like, oh, man, what happened? And then we found out, like, later on, a lot of our stories were similar. But then she was like, hey, well, if you're not doing anything later on, let's go have lunch. And at first I was like, I don't know. I was married for 16 years. When any girl asks you for lunch, you're like, So in my head, I was like, but then I realized I was like, well, I'm about to go home. I'm probably about to go home and go to sleep or play video games all day long. That's what I'm probably about to do. So I was like, let me get out the house. I was like, all right, cool. And then she's like, well, I don't have any money. And I was like, and then I'm looking at myself like, I've been, I'm at the house with 3 girls. I ain't got no money either. So she's like, well, I got some old shrimp and like some broccoli and stuff. I was like, well, I can bring a salad over. She's like, no, 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 don't bring nothing over. I was like, all right, cool. So I'm like, all right. And so of course, she leaves. And in my head, I'm like, I ain't got no number. I don't know where she stays. I was like, I don't know how this is supposed to happen. So I ain't gonna lie. I sat there and I was like, you know what, God, if this is something that you want me to do, you want me to go to her house and just have a good time. I said, I don't know, let her still be out there. And so I'm putting up stuff. I go back and I turn and look, and she's sitting on the couch. I was like, oh gosh, she's still here. Guy thought she left. So then I turned back around, and boy, I must have did the most awkward thing ever. So she's sitting on the couch, right? Normal couch. Let's say a love seat for all you guys just trying to paint the picture. She's sitting on a love seat on one side. I'm trying to smoothly, quote unquote, go and sit on the other side, but I don't know if I buckled, I don't know if I stumbled, but literally I almost like sat in her lap. Like that's how close it was. I like sat in her lap, and then it was too awkward, so I couldn't even like scoot over. I was just like on her lap, and I was like, and so I kind of like slightly over. And she's kind of like, okay. I was like, hey, sorry, it was bad, dude. It was bad. I'm like, hey, yeah, I didn't get your number so that we can meet later on or whatnot. And she's like, oh, okay. And so she gave me her number. I was like, are you sure you don't need anything? She's like, no. I was like, well, I'm gonna go home and freshen up, and then I come back. She's like, all right, cool. So then, go home, text her on my way, get over there. And then, of course, she remembered I was a cook. So she's like panicking. Like, she's like, I think the shrimp's overcooked, the broccoli's overcooked. And I'm like, I'm just hungry. I don't care what we eat. I was like, as long as we eat. So we eat the food, dude. I mean, honestly, I think one of the most memorable moments was that um, as we were eating and talking, dude, it was like the one time in my entire life that I got to share everything that had happened in my previous marriage. And
Mm.
it was like parallel to her marriage. I mean, I was like, hey, did things happen on your birthday? Yeah, he cheated on me on my birthday. I was like, dang. I was like, what about Christmas? Yeah, he cheated on me on Christmas. I'm like, dang. I was like, did you ever like give them money to get you presents? She's like, yeah, all the time. I'm like, dude, it was so similar. In my head, I'm thinking like, man, you just the girl version of me, man. I'm like, dude, like everything that happened to me happened to you. And so I was just able to share exactly like, hey, would you feel like this when this was going on? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, how did you process this? And how did you process that? And you would think by us being, male and female that we would have been able to process thoughts and just what we were going through differently. But at that moment, dude, it was like the one time where I can like, we felt each other's pain. Like it was that one person where it's like you can completely relate to everything. And man, it was just like we must have talked and cried, and I mean, I know I couldn't hold back, so I was like, man, because I was like, dude, just revisiting those pains and those moments, and then being able to share somebody going like, I know exactly how you feel, like that was just like a godsend. And so after I finished crying and stuff like that, I was like, let's watch a movie because we just gonna keep crying and talking about stories and stuff like that. And so we watch a movie, and I'm kind of looking at her, at the side. I'm thinking like, I'm like, God, why am I here? Like, am I here for a reason? Am I like, I said, because I ain't trying to, as a quote unquote, uh, what's the word I'm trying? I ain't trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not trying to like satisfy some need. There we go. That's the word I'm trying to say. Like, cause I'm coming over there and I'm just like, hey, I don't have any friends at this moment in time. I've been basically, when you get divorced, kind of everybody's friends kind of separate, or
Yeah.
you're weary about talking around other people because you're like, oh, it's gonna get back to her or this and that, or you're part of her or whatever it is. And so literally talking with her and just looking at her and thinking like, man, this is different. Like I've never hung out with somebody that's just that cool and just understands me and stuff like that. And so after watching the movie for a little while, I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's wearing like a little ponytail, and she's probably gonna get mad come say this on the podcast, but I'm looking at her and I'm thinking like, that ponytail don't match her hair. Like when I look at her hair, it's curly, but that ponytail don't look right. So I turn around and I'm like, why are you wearing that? She's like, that is just so rude. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out. Like, I could tell underneath that you have really good hair. Why are you wearing it? It's like, that is rude. You never ask a girl. I'm like, I'm just trying to figure out why you wearing that. And so, long story short, she's like, oh, I didn't want to do my hair, blah, 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 this and that. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, well, what does your hair look like? And so she showed me her hair and it's like nice and, curly. I was like, oh, you should wear your hair more. But granted, at that time, she had the shave head. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember the
I
shave.
remember. I
Yeah.
remember.
That was the only thing I didn't like. She knew it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that she doesn't know. I did not like that. I don't know. I understood why she did it, so it was not like I was like, "Ugh, don't do that ever again." But it was like, yeah, we ain't gonna be going to the same bar. We're getting fades.
Yeah, yeah.
We ain't
I don't
gonna-
want to be comparing who has a better fade.
who you're like? Who next?
Who
You?
did it
Like,
Who
no.
did it best?
And so, found out she had curly hair, and then we were just talking more and more about what she used to do and stuff like that. And so, it was interesting because I think I almost recall like 3 months before that, I had been to a service and they were talking about like, if you think God's not real or if you don't believe, stuff like that, why don't you ask him for something only he can do? And I was like, I'm sitting there like, and in my head, most of the time when you hear something like that, you be like, man, God, give me $1 million, give me this. I'm like, no, no, no. I was like, I'm gonna really press into this one. I'm like, you know what, God, give me a girl with curly hair. I was like, I want somebody with curly hair. And then I was like, you know what, God, what else do I want? I said, oh, you know what I want, God? I said, I want somebody who has like multiple ethnicities. Like I want something that's like different culture. Like I don't want. I was like, I love black. Don't get me wrong, I'm black and can't change it. You know, it is, it is. But what I'm saying is, I want something that's like I've eaten the fried chicken and the watermelon. That's so racist, but
Good.
I know
Oh
we get
yeah.
trouble for that one.
Cancel. Cancel.
Anyways, I know, but no, I just wanted somebody with different culture. Like I wanted to be immersed in something else, and so and then I asked for her to be on fire for you, Lord. I was like, I need someone that's going to propel me just as well as I can propel her. And so as we're sitting there talking, I see she has curly hair. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And so I just kind of ask her more questions. I'm like, hey, who's your, you have any family or anything like that or whatnot? And she's like, oh, well, I got mainly family in Hawaii. I was like, oh, are you Hawaiian? She's like, no, I'm not Hawaiian. I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, well, I'm Filipino too. I'm like, Filipino? I was like, who's your mom? She's like, oh, you probably seen her. She sits at church. I'm like, the lady that sits on like the third row in the front. She's like, yeah. I was like, oh, I know your mom. I talk to her all the time. She's like, well, then you probably know my sister and my brother-in-law. I'm like, who your sister and brother-in-law? He's like, yo, you know my brother-in-law. And so, that was Marcel that's on the last episode. Y'all
Yeah.
probably seen him. And so I'm like, oh, I talked to Marcel like the first day. I said, of course I know his wife. And so I'm like, wait, so is your dad the one? And he had passed away at that time. But I knew he used to be like the one that was like when Pastor would say something, he'd be like, yep, he'd be loud. He was like, oh man, I can hear him. And so she was like, yeah. I was like, oh man. I said, so you're like Filipino and black? She's like, yeah. I said, but you grew up in Hawaii, so you got a kind of a Hawaiian culture? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm just immersed in blah 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 and this and that. I'm like, dang. I'm like, all right, one box check, two box check. And so then I said, you know what? I get hungry. I'm like, oh man, I'm hungry. I was like, you want to go and grab something to eat? She's like, yeah. And later on, she tells me she's thinking I'm talking about like, let's go to Wendy's or let's go to like McDonald's. But my favorite place is Maggiano's. Like, I love that place. And so since it was just me for the weekend, I was like, let's just go to Maggiano's. She's like, Maggiano's. She's like, that's a little fancy. And in my head, I'm thinking I think it's just like a slightly upscaled, Olive Garden.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, I love it. I'll take that over anything. But she's like, that's a little fancy. And so I'm like, no. And so we go, we drive there or whatnot, and we're talking stories and just trying find out more about each other. And we get there, and there's actually a couple taking pictures in front of a Christmas tree. And I guess the way we're talking and just kind of like just near each other, the couple think that we're together. So they're like, oh, why don't you get in front of the Christmas tree and take a picture? And I'm like, all right, whatever, just taking the picture. And so that's like literally one of our staple pictures because that was like literally our first time meeting each other. And we
Yeah.
got a picture there. And so we sit there and we're ordering food, and I mean we're crying again and we're talking and we're just like, because I mean she's really trying to figure out like, is your story really close to mine, or are you just making this up because you're trying to get something or whatever? And I'm like, are you really who you are? Are you just trying to we're really, but I mean the way it was just orchestrated. And then I just remember praying that day, and I was like, God, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're doing something, but I know something here ain't the norm. I said,
Yeah.
there's something so different. You're moving in some way because I've never felt this way in my entire life with anybody, to where I can just openly express everything that's been going on. Just expose myself so naked in a way that where it's like, everything before I even say, before it even goes any further. There's nothing else. And we end up, after we got finished eating, we went to Mozart's and saw a light show. And honestly, our biggest thing is that we always say it's like, we call it the when the sun stood still, because from the church all the way, I mean, if you hear the events that happen from the church to lunch to going to Maggiano's to going to Mozart's, or watching a movie to going to Maggiano's, Mozart, like it seems like, I mean, it's a 24-hour day, but literally it seemed like 3 or 4 months had passed. And
Mhm.
she had to go and baby or watch. She was house sitting or whatnot, so she went and house sit. And then I think I went back home because I had to buy some presents, or I had to start wrapping presents for the girls, which I did not end up wrapping. She ended up wrapping for me, which is shouts
Oh,
out, shouts out to you,
that's how
babe.
you did. All right.
Shouts out to you,
Like
babe.
lifetime Christmas.
Well, it's funny too because I think I was gonna just like sit them underneath the tree. She's like, "That's not what you supposed to wrap." I was like, "I suck at rapping," and so she was godsend. She wrapped almost all those presents and held them for
That
me
was the
for.
fourth request, huh? Get
Yeah.
the right present.
I know I should have wrote that in there. Can she wrap presents? Yes, no. But yeah, like after that, man, it was just like literally us getting to know each other. I didn't actually propose to her until obviously after my divorce, just to make sure things were right because we wanted to spend that time really getting to know each other and stuff like that. And it was a great journey. Like it was an awesome time on what God had did in that little bit to be so open and honest. I feel like this day and age we try to hide a lot of things, and then when we as we get into a relationship we start trying to play that what's that game, deal or no, not, it's not deal or no deal, what's the one you pick the boxes, let me get a suitcase 2 3, like I feel like that's what life's
Oh
about.
yeah, yeah, I know
I
what
think
you're
it's
talking about.
deal or no deal, I think that's what
Yeah,
it's called.
I think it's deal or no deal.
And I think we do that so much in relationships, but like literally in me and Joel, I'll just say what it is. Joel's relationship, we I mean everything was open, like everything from a lot of things that trigger us to things that really made us sad to things that make us happy to things that we're looking for into our relationship. Like we were able, I mean, we've been to premarital counseling twice. We got lucky. We got to do it once where it was just us and the counselors, and we got to do it a second time with the group. And
Mm,
so, and it really was for me to make sure that Joelle wasn't some rebound girl. A lot of times some people are like, oh, you just that she was just there. I was like, no, I want to make sure. And so we talked about everything, and I made sure that hey, before I even asked her to be my wife, I was like, hey, I want to make sure that everything that we're doing is not because it just feels good right now. Like, no, I wanted to make sure that this is going to be a lifelong covenant that we gonna look back and be a testimony for each other, and she feels the same way. And so it was by far, this is by far, because if everybody was to put the timeline together, I mean literally I got like divorced in March. I asked to be my girlfriend obviously in March, and then what, I think a year later we got married. I want to say, I guess that's not even a year. Well, yeah, it's almost close to a year. A year later we got married, in COVID or whatnot. And not saying that relationships don't have problems, but man, I mean, we still kicking and screaming, I like to always call it. And man, I just every time I tell my story to people, they're always just kind of like, it's kind of quick, isn't it? It's kind of like I didn't really, but honestly, the one thing that we definitely have done since this time is just making sure God's in the center of everything we do, because that's what we didn't have in our last marriage. But really, just understanding where we came from and what God has even done for us to be at this point. Because man, I was like, honestly, if anybody else would have told me that story, I would have probably been like, "Man, y'all crazy!" Like I don't know if I'd have done that, but just the way he's done it, and just the way me walking through it has really just hopefully been encouraged for people, because I know a lot of times coming from a divorce, sometimes people think that's it. Like it's like, oh nope, especially with three girls, and here she comes.
yeah.
We've been married for 2 years now, coming up on 3 in April. Yeah, I think so. 3 in April.
Get it right. Get it
Yeah.
right. This is
It's just
might
recorded.
not release this episode if you get it wrong or edit that out. There'll be a
And
voiceover.
I know.
She is.
It'll just like just cut it straight out. Nah. And yeah, she's loved the girls like they're her own. That was like something that I really needed at the time, because I needed a strong woman in the household to teach the girls just how to be a lady, a godly woman, and just even how to just be the wife for the husbands that they have, later on down the road. And so, yeah, it's been a great journey, and that's my story. I mean, again, anybody email, talk, chit chat, we could talk about it, because yeah, there was a lot of things that had happened, and that most people may be like, oh, I don't know, but I mean, God was just moving, and He was moving definitely before us, and I just loved every fact of it. So, but here we
All
go.
right. Throwing it over to me now.
Oh yeah, so I'm actually curious about this because I know bits and pieces of it, but I don't know the whole story. I want to hear the whole story.
Yeah. So I'll give a little background. Because like I said, our stories are different. So basically, at the time, or just a little bit before Amy and I kind of connected, basically I was pursuing this woman, young lady, who really she had made it known multiple times that she wasn't interested.
Mm,
But there was the whole thing where even though she spoke that she wasn't interested, I would do things and she would, she wouldn't turn it down, right? Like
Yeah.
she liked the attention that I was giving her. So not a very healthy, and I think I've hinted at this in other episodes, not a
Hmm.
very healthy dynamic that I was in. And so it kind of came to a head right around the beginning of 2018. Like we
Hmm.
basically had kind of a falling out, and to the point to where um, I, I'll just be. We were actually roommates, like in a
Hmm.
two-bedroom apartment. I know, dumb. And so, you know, we basically were like avoiding each other. So
Hmm.
anyway, so at that time, I made a couple of forays into online dating, but the no success. In fact, some
Yeah.
very very bad experiences. But after that time, I was like, you know what, I've kind of got to get myself out there. I've got to find a different environment to be in.
Hmm.
So hop back on the app that I was using. At that, well, pretty much the whole time I was actively into online dating, was this app called OkCupid. I don't even know if it still exists. I
I
don't
know
need to
you do.
check
Yeah.
or whatever.
I'll
But
check
got
now.
on OkCupid, and I hadn't
Yes.
been on for a while. So
Hmm.
it had like a new look. They had all kinds of like new features and stuff like that. And so like I was looking through some of the options they uh, were giving me, and I think I forget how it happened, but they were like, someone who you likes you, and they gave me like four options, and I'm like, okay,
Ah.
what is this? This is like
That
gangster
sounds
stuff
interesting.
or
Yeah.
what, you know? And
Yeah.
so I was like looking at the profiles, and I was like, oh, this one girl's cute. Um, and so, or maybe it was like, one of these four is a good match for you. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I looked at the profiles and I saw this one, lady. I was like, huh, she's Asian. No, like I didn't have anything against dating. Really, I don't have at the time. I was open. Like I
Yeah.
was open to. I didn't have like they need to be black, they need to be white, whatever. It
Yeah.
was like, do am I attracted to them? Are they good character? All that stuff. There's a lot of
Hmm.
other things we'll talk about as we go. So anyway, looked at her profile and I was like, huh. And so I liked it, and it was like, this person likes you back, and I was like, oh, what? And they were like, why don't you reach out to them? And so I was like, let me give it a moment, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, let me
The
not be right.
hesitation.
So I think that was a Saturday. I think that following Sunday, I reached out.
Hmm.
And I wrote like, because my thing was is like when I had a profile, my profile was detailed. It
Hmm.
wasn't like short little bit, like I gave like a very detailed thing. And so whenever I wrote to her, like I even talked about things that I saw in her profile that I liked and things
Hmm.
like that. And so when she responded, when she talked to me later on, she was like, I really love the fact that you actually showed that you read my profile.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
just looked at
Okay.
pictures and like, oh, this girl's cute. Let's go. And so we started talking. We basically we were having back and forths, and I think within days we FaceTimed. I
Okay.
think it was like 2 or 3 days after like talking on, or maybe I think what it was is we were talking on OkCupid. We got each other's numbers. We started texting, and then pretty soon after that we FaceTimed.
Okay.
And so by that following Sunday, we went on our first date.
Oh, okay.
So within a week of
Yeah.
first contact to date, that was the time frame. And so at the time, I grew up in a Christian home. I certainly know that I have faith in Christ and all that stuff. But I definitely went through highs and lows. And during this
Hmm.
season, I was not regularly going to church. I wasn't like going out there doing crazy stuff, but I definitely was not um, showing much fruit.
Hmm.
And so the main challenge that or one of the main things that she said she was looking for someone who was, who had a solid relationship with God, and was, basically ready to lead in the relationship in that way. And so I told her, I was like, you know what? I'm actually not going to church right now. Like, things right now for me as my faith are just not in the greatest place. And she actually appreciated that I was, like open about that. So we actually decided our first date was we were going to meet at a church that
Okay.
she was
Okay.
interested in seeing.
Okay.
So so we meet up at this church. Um, it was interesting because it was Super Bowl Sunday, and they did like a Super Bowl themed
Okay.
like service.
I like how you
Not
say
the
it.
greatest. We were like,
Yeah.
but then after that, we went to this restaurant in Austin called, well, it's not just in Austin, but this one was in Austin called Snooze. Had
Oh
a
yeah.
great brunch.
Great one.
And prior to that, when we were chatting about it, since it was Super Bowl Sunday, Amy, well, yeah, Amy, my wife, she was like,
You can hold it in forever.
it just
Gotta
comes
let
out.
it
It just
go.
comes out.
But we already
She
knew
was
about it
like,
though.
when we were talking about what we could do, she was like, and then maybe we can meet up and go watch the Super Bowl together.
Okay.
And so I said to her, I was like, well, I actually have already been invited to a Super Bowl party. Why don't you just come? And she's like, let's see how things go, and we'll assess at that
Yeah.
time. I was like, hey, I understand that. So we go to Snooze. We have a great brunch. We're just chatting, like the conversation's just flowing.
Hmm.
Um, we're having a good time. After we eat brunch, we go hang out outside because the weather was it's
Hmm.
Texas,
Yeah.
so it was still nice weather even though it's beginning of February. Um, and so as we're chatting, I'm like, so, we talked about, you know, I'm going to be heading over to my coworker's place to go watch Super Bowl. What do you think? And she goes, let me change and I'll meet you and I'll follow you, I'll follow
Yeah.
you
Okay.
to the spot.
Okay.
So it's kind of what you were talking
Yeah.
about, man. We basically spent the whole day together.
Yeah.
The only
Uh,
time we were apart was when she went to go, get cleaned up and
hmm.
change. So from the morning when we went to church to, the Super Bowl, it
Yeah.
went pretty late. We spent that whole day together. And, it was just so, like, it just felt so right.
Yeah.
And so, like, from very early on, I was definitely like, I would say there was definitely the thought in my mind that this woman could be somebody who,
Who said I love you first?
well, hey, don't
Not
get
messing
into
with you.
that. Like, we won't go
I'm
through
just messing with
we
you.
won't go through the whole progression of the
I'm
relationship, but
just messing with
I said I love you first. Okay. But we hit a rocky patch very, very early on
you.
because
Mm,
in one of our, like, I want to say it was maybe our second date, because we were very open with each other. I
hmm.
was sharing with her some stuff, and I was like, hey, I just want you to know, I have this secret Instagram account, and like I'm following the stuff that I really shouldn't be following.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, well, I appreciate you being honest with me. Um, and I don't really know how to feel about that. And so it kind of put a damper on that date.
Hmm.
And then I think either that next day or yeah, I think it was the next day, she reached out and she was like, I've been thinking about what you share with me, and I just really can't,
Mm,
that I can't get beyond that. I don't know
yeah.
that I can really pursue a relationship with you. And that hit hard, man, because
Oh wow.
for me, I was
Yeah.
like I was really, I was already thinking
Yeah.
forward.
You were thinking future. You were.
Um, and I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I hear you. I told her, I was like, and I actually, after that conversation, I was like, I'm taking steps to address all of that we talked about.
Hmm.
Um, but she goes, and I appreciate that, but I don't know if I can stick around to see
Wait for
you,
the.
like,
Wow.
get in a good place.
Yeah.
And man, that was hard. I remember I called my sisters and I talked to them about how, you know, hard that made me feel and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And so I'm thinking it's it's a
It's
wrap,
done.
right?
It's a wrap.
I think it's
Yeah.
a wrap. Well, anyway, we talked the next day, and she goes,
Hmm.
like, I thought about it some more. I've been praying about it, and she goes, we need to address this, but I'm actually willing to give this a shot.
Oh wow.
And as you guys can tell, the
Look
rest
at
is
God.
history. We actually started attending the church that we attend now from
Hmm.
like that next Sunday. So basically, all that stuff where it was like we were good, we weren't
Yeah.
good, till we're
Wow.
good again was within the next week.
Oh
And the
wow.
following week, we started attending the church that we now attend regularly, and we've been going faithfully.
Hmm.
Obviously, um, we are married now. We have a kid, so and the crazy thing for me, and I always tell people this because God and I, we had some very, harsh one-on-ones, me, thinking I could tell God my grievances. Um, and one of the main things that I was very, very, and there's a lot of pride in this, but I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like I'm a good guy and I'm doing, I'm not
Mm. Oh, I
doing
know
the bad
exactly how
things
that
like all
felt.
these other men are doing. Why can't
Yeah.
I find someone? And, I met Amy uh, a few months before I turned 39, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I'm not saying like, hey guys, I met my wife when I was 39. So, just wait, just wait. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that, like I said, this is what I was saying. I was mad because I hadn't met my wife, but my wife didn't even live in the state yet. You know,
Mm.
she moved. Well, she
Yeah.
was born in South Korea. She lived in Hawaii pretty much
Wait,
all
she
her
was born in
life.
South Korea? Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She basically spent her in adult most of her adult life in Seattle, and she
Mhm.
moved to Austin, and I think it was 2017.
Oh, wow.
We met February 4th of 2018.
Okay.
So, I'm definitely not one of those people who's like, there's one person who's for you, but I do know that as far as the way, like, as far as character, as far as life goals, as far as how we envision our futures, Amy and I are very much on the same wavelength. We're not the same
Mhm.
person. We don't have this exact same mission. We very much complement each other because there are things that I like that she has no interest in, and vice versa. But we complement each other well. But I know that as far as the character of who she is, um, just how she loves other people, there's so many things I can
Mhm.
brag about my wife over. Um, and so, and also, kind of similar to you. I mean, she's half Japanese, half Korean.
Mhm.
I had never really had Korean food
Yeah.
prior to
Oh,
meeting
really?
her, and now that's pretty much a staple in our home.
Yeah.
It's definitely has opened me up to just so much more. But it was beautiful, like meeting this person who challenges me, but also is willing
Mm.
to be in the role of knowing that I'm the leader of this home,
Mhm.
and understanding the challenge that is, and you know we have our moments where we butt heads, but when it comes down to it, she she honors that
Yeah.
role. She honors her
Yeah.
role and she honors my role, and we work through things together. So, um, that's really all I want to share. But
Yeah.
if I could just say one final thing, and then I'll let Daryl kind of wrap things up, is definitely for those people. I'll try to hit every. If you are looking for a wife, just continue to be patient.
Mm.
Like, don't
Facts.
get discouraged, don't get disheartened. I know it can be daunting out there. Like I said, I think I can speak pretty,
Mhm.
uh, authoritatively in that point, because besides Amy, I've only dated one other woman. Like, it wasn't
Mm.
like I was just like, just had, just a
Smooth.
harem of women
Yeah.
just coming after me, so
Uh,
I definitely experienced a lot of just longing.
mhm.
But now that I'm where I am now, like, I realize I could have been a lot more patient.
Yeah.
For those who are, maybe Daryl can speak a little bit. If you're dealing with a marriage that's struggling, I definitely encourage you to fight for your marriage, fight for your,
Mhm.
your wife,
Facts.
because I've seen God just redeem
Mhm.
a lot of people's marriages from some
Mhm.
some very broken places.
Yeah.
And if your marriage is going well, don't take that for granted. You need to nurture
Mhm.
it. Because a plant can be looking great one day, and if you don't give it
Mhm.
what it needs to continue to thrive,
Yeah.
you're going to come in and it's going to be dead or dying. So,
Mhm.
if your marriage is healthy, then do the things you know to do to keep it healthy.
Mhm. Yeah, and just to piggyback off what you said, Todd, yes, definitely fight for your marriage, man, out there. Um, Getting divorced was not. There's definitely something me and my wife Joelle did not want in our previous marriages. It hurt hard. It really did. It hurt hard, and the thing was that it wasn't that we gave up, and I don't even think it's that our partner gave up. It's just it wasn't rooted on anything. It
Mm.
was two people literally trying to do things in their own strength. And believers, you should understand this. Non-believers, I want you to understand this: is that if there's no common ground, if there's no foundation, it makes it difficult. I mean, it's if you're not on. I mean, and that not to go in because that could be a whole nother subject in its own. But I mean, that was one thing that really broke our last relationship, and so getting into this relationship right now, this marriage now, we have a clear understanding that Christ is going to be a center of everything that we do, and at times we may even get on each other's nerves. But I'm like, let's take it to the Lord first, because the Lord he gonna sort it out. That's like I think that's actually pretty interesting. If you think about it, he'll sort it out for you. We create the mess, he sorts it out. Isn't that crazy? I just think
Yeah.
it's crazy. And so going through this marriage now, it's a blessing because of the fact of what God has restored in both me and Joel's life, and we can never take it away. And for guys just looking for that, Todd, get meeting his wife later on in life. And I mean, if you could even see a glimpse of their marriage right now, guys, it's crazy. On I'm pretty sure Todd would have been like, man, I wish this for later on, early on in life, but to have it now and watch the joy that you guys even have, and you probably don't even think about those days that much, because you're looking ahead. And so being patient, guys, not settling or not even picking up women that are not who you really want to spend the rest of your life with, really taking that time and focusing in, and even fine tuning yourself, because getting into a marriage takes a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of feel like as men, we get married and it's like, oh, you know what? She's going to take care of me. I ain't got to do nothing. Nah, that ain't how it works, bro. I'm sorry. If you want to live, if you want to be happy and she be happy, it ain't going to work like that. And
Yeah.
so, um, I'm just thankful again that we have met our wives. God definitely orchestrated some different paths for us. It's funny you say you
Sure.
met your wife, and I ain't gonna lie, my wife was all over the place: Alaska, Dallas, Hawaii. I mean, she wouldn't even sitting still. I think we probably would have passed each other, wouldn't even known it on the highway.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, it's just been a glorious thing to be able to just walk this path of husband again. Getting divorced, I thought that was it. I was like, well, I'm divorced for 3 girls. Well, I'm gonna be single forever because ain't nobody gonna marry a guy with 3 girls. And so Joel has been a blessing to this family and to me. And so yeah, we just wanted to share our story so you guys can understand that we are on different walks, different ages, different even like parenting. Like it's different, but we all have one thing in common. And it's just that we love our wives, we love the Lord, and we just love to get this information out to you guys so that you guys can make the best decisions that you can for your life and also for your marriages and even just your family to come. So
Yeah, so we definitely appreciate it, guys. I know this is a different type of episode. We mostly have been doing kind of topical stuff, but we just want to share a little bit of ourselves and our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. So,
yep.
that's all we got for tonight. Definitely looking forward to picking things back up with you guys. So,
All
until
right,
then,
check y'all out.
bye.
Peace.